take off, take flight with you. Yeah, we never fly, but we're flying.
Hi folks, welcome back to another episode of Take Flight Podcast. This is episode number 222 and it's part of our solo takeaway episode. This week's episode is hosted by myself, OLU OKUNOLA. In this week's episode, I want to discuss why I'm selling my apartment, the lessons learned, and help you answer the question, should you sell your apartment or rent it out? Before I get started, I just want to start with a disclaimer. This podcast is for information purposes only. Matters discussed are not intended to provide or should not be relied on for investment, accounting, legal, tax, or financial recommendations. The views and opinions presented are those of the presenters and they might change. We advise that you seek and obtain independent financial advice in matters to your personal circumstances. With that said, let's get started. In January 2024, I decided to accept an offer on my apartment. I purchased this apartment in 2016. Interest rates were really low. I was approximately paying around $500 a month on interest only, right? Significantly lower than if I was looking to rent at the time. So I was making a lot of margin if you look at the decision of should I own a property, pay £500 interest, or potentially rent, which would be around $1,400, maybe $1,600. So within that margin, I was saving a lot of money, which I was able to invest in the stock market and purchase other investment properties. And also the space in which I have in this apartment is a 2-bedroom apartment. I had enough space for my bedroom and then convert the second room to an office. Now, if I look back at when I purchased the property in 2016, I would say I overpaid for the property. And this is my first advice for the listeners. The money is made when purchasing your property. So the fact that I've overpaid around 25K, now that I'm looking to sell, I'm struggling to be able to meet the price in which I purchased the property for. Also, you're eroding, you're taking away from some of that appreciation of that particular property. But anyways, aside from that, I've gained so much benefit from such a low interest rate environment where owning the property was financially more lucrative than me renting. But things have changed. So the reason why I'm selling the property is based on multiple factors. Firstly, I'm outside of my fixed mortgage period. This means now that I'm looking to sell my property, I won't incur any additional fees from the bank. So just to put this into some context, if I signed a fixed term mortgage and after the first year I wanted to sell my property, I would have to pay approximately around 7K fees to the bank just to be able to sell and close out that mortgage. So I'm in a great position right now where I'm outside of my fixed term, so I won't incur any additional cost. The second reason is apartments aren't really appreciating. The offer that I accepted was 5K less than the price that I purchased in 2016. Now, the reason why I accepted that offer was if I look at other apartments around the area, I'm able to still demand higher than those apartments, sort of 20K more than the apartments that are selling around my area due to the standard of my apartment. But saying that, it hasn't really appreciated over the last 8 years. That goes to my second lesson. I personally believe that apartments don't appreciate as much as houses, right? If I could go back in time, I would have probably saved a little bit more to purchase a house. I've seen houses which have appreciated over that same period of time by 50 to 100K. I haven't seen that much appreciation in my apartment. This is also due to obviously the leasehold years. I'm looking to sell it before it reaches under 100 years because as you start to go under 100 years, the value of the property starts to decline. So another reason why I'm looking to sell it. Thirdly, interest rates are a lot higher. The financials don't make sense. Now, some people might be saying, instead of selling your property, why don't you just rent it out? Like I said, with the higher interest rates, the maths just doesn't make sense. With the price of the interest rate, the price of the service charge, and looking at the area and the rental price that I'll be able to get for my apartment, I'll be making minimal profit, maybe even a loss on the property. And again, like I mentioned in the second point, Why hold on to an asset that is not appreciating? I'm not making profit. It's not appreciating. It's not a house. If I get an offer, which I did, which I thought was fair and reasonable, why not sell? And my fourth reason is really by selling, I now have the flexibility to be able to rent, move locations abroad if I wanted to, work abroad, moving closer to central London. I have that flexibility now that I've sold the property. So removing all the emotional attachments to the property, it makes financial sense for me to sell the asset. Sell it, I can move, rent for approximately the same price I'll be paying right now with the higher interest rate to own. And I can put that equity into a business, the stock market, or even purchasing a house, which I believe will appreciate over time. So that's my decision and the reason why I decided to sell my apartment. For the listeners who are contemplating if they should sell their home, their house, their apartment, or rent it out, there's a few questions you should ask yourself. The first one is there a financial need? A major reason why a lot of people sell their homes is the financial implications. Is your interest rates too high? Are you missing interest payments? It's better to sell it before you lose your home and the bank sell it at a cheaper price. It might be better to sell it and downsize. The next thing is, do you need more space? Do you need more space? Do you need more flexibility? That could be another reason to sell your home. And thirdly is if you feel like it's not appreciated. So if you moved into an apartment and you felt like the apartment wasn't appreciating, like myself, it might make sense to sell, count your losses, and purchase a house or purchase some stocks or another asset that would generate income. And the last thing I'll say is do the analysis, right? Before you decide if you should rent out your apartment or house, you should really sit down and ask yourself the question, how much would the interest rates be? Look around the market and see in your rental area, what would it cost to rent that particular property? And minus one from the other. Obviously, there's some additional costs that you should take into consideration when being a landlord, like the cover maintenance, etc. I normally go with 10% of whatever that rental income is. Think of that as a maintenance pot that you'll need for that property. But when you take the interest rate, that maintenance pot, does it still make financial sense to be a landlord? The stress of having tenants not pay, having a bad tenant, sometimes it might be better to just sell. So I hope that's helped you to ask yourself the right question in terms of, is it right for you to sell your apartment? Now, I'm going through this process now, and this is the first time I've sold a property. So I've purchased multiple properties, investment properties, but this is the first time I've sold. One of the first things that's come to realization is that when you sell properties, so many fees you have to pay. You pay agent fee. My agent fee is around 1.5% of the property value. You pay solicitor fee to sell the property as well. So I'm looking at, okay, I've sold it for this particular value. I'm probably going to also have another 5 to 6K of fees going to solicitor and the agents. So when you do sell your property, also take into consideration the fees that you have to pay in association to it, which they don't really talk about when you purchase a property. Anyways, I hope this episode has been useful and helpful for you in making the decision. I'm absolutely ecstatic to go on this new journey, new chapter of selling my apartment, moving that equity into the next chapter, if it's investing in the stock market or even purchasing a home or a house later on down the line. But I will keep you updated with that progression and what I do decide to do next. But I'm excited for this new chapter. So hope you've enjoyed this takeaway episode. You can find more information on Take Flight Podcast on Instagram, or you can follow us on YouTube on Take Flight Podcast, or you can follow me on YouTube, OLU OKUNOLA, or on Instagram, OLU_OKUNOLA. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Take care and God bless.
Take off, take flight with you.